Hi, I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Chelsea Lipford-Wolf.
Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a like and a comment.
And be sure to share with a friend, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notified of new videos.
Thanks and enjoy the show.
This deck needs some help. This week we're going to completely replace it, but not with wood.
Welcome to Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Get ready for a half hour full of projects, tips, and ideas to help you improve your home.
Welcome to the show. Now this is about the worst deck I've ever seen. I mean, it's in bad condition because it hasn't been maintained and it never was built properly with the spans that we have underneath. And the stairs, you can see we need some work on these. Well, this week we're going to completely replace all of this and do it the right way using treated wood for framing and a composite deck material for the deck surface itself. We're also going to use the same composite material for handrails to go across this front and right down the new set of steps. And we'll do it all in this week's show, so stay with us. Welcome back to the show. As you can see, we have a great start on the framework for our new deck. Now we're using pressure treated wood for all of the structural framing. Then our composite deck material will attach right to the top of our joist. Now before we could do any of this work, we had to take care of that old deck. The demolition was a chore, even though the deck was poorly constructed and badly weathered. The waterlogged wood and rusted nails made prying it apart go slowly. The only supports beneath the deck boards themselves were a few 2x4 joists resting on hollow cinder block columns. 2x6s should be the minimum for this span. Once the deck boards were gone, the pace really picked up. The guys removed the undersized joist, knocked over the columns with a sledgehammer, and cleared the workspace. In addition to the composite deck, this home is getting a complete exterior makeover, and to continue the low maintenance theme, we've replaced all of the windows and doors with new energy efficient vinyl ones. The old wood siding was also replaced using fiber cement sheet siding that will resist termites and rotting. After that, we were ready to start the construction of our new deck. Now that started with establishing a level line on the back part of the house using a laser level. What we did is we projected a mark up on the wall, then measured up to where we wanted it here, which is a point about 3 inches below the two doors we have that lead out onto the deck. Then we had our chalk line all the way around the house, and at that point we were ready to attach our 2x8 to the wall. The band joists are lined up on the chalk mark and nailed in place first. Then we drill pilot holes every 24 inches or so through the joist and into the house. Long galvanized lag screws are screwed into these holes, anchoring the perimeter support of the deck to the floor system of the house. A string pulled between the two ends of the deck will establish a straight line for the front of the deck. Along this line, measurements are made for support posts, which are treated 6x6s. These posts are not only cut to length, but also notched to support the band joist. The posts on either end are put in first so that they can be leveled and tacked in before another string is pulled across at the bottom. This will be used to lay out and dig the 2-foot holes for the post going into the middle. These two middle posts will also support the stairs that lead onto the deck. These posts are also cut to length and notched to support the band joist. When the 6x6 is properly positioned, the first section of the front band joist is measured, cut to length, and nailed in place. The other two sections are also nailed into place, being careful to keep the whole band joist lined up with the string. The first joist goes into the middle alongside one of the stair posts, and this will keep the band joist from bowing in or out. The joists rest on a ledger board, which is a little 2x2 strip that is nailed to the inside of the band joist flush with the bottom. As the joists are cut, they're notched to ride on this ledger, keeping the tops flush and adding additional strength. These joists are spaced on 16-inch centers across the deck space. When the joists start going in, the structure really stiffens up, and the crew checks the post for square and plumb before mixing concrete to fill in the holes around them. Next, the guys begin laying out the stairs by pulling a string perpendicular to the deck. The stringers line up on this string and are attached to a 4x4 post when they're level. The other side is set up the same way, making sure that the distance between the stringers is the same top and bottom. When the steps are all level and the post plumb, they're concreted in place and braced until they dry. After our concrete around our post is completely dried, we'll be putting in 2 more stringers between these, then we'll be ready to finish up the steps. Now, our framing is pretty much complete, including a row of blocking we put down right down the middle of the deck to really stiffen the deck since we have no middle support. This will really work out well. Now, one thing Greg's involved in now is applying a bead of silicone caulk right where our wood touches our wall. Now, there's a lot of different ways of flashing a deck like this. Since we have fiber cement siding and treated wood, this will work well to keep any water from getting down behind our joist, because what can happen is it can track into the underside of the original house through some of their bolts and nails that we have along here. So that'll solve that. And we'll also take some of the same silicone and use it along our starter strip for our composite decking material that we'll be applying. And that is our next step. But first, check this out.
It's time to pick up a few tricks of the trade from Danny and home repair expert Joe Truini in this week's Simple Solution.
Some of the best woodworking tips are those that have been around for a long time, and old Joe has one for us today.
Well, thanks, Danny. This one is called a bench hook, and it provides a quick and easy way to hand saw lumber.
Okay.
And as you know, if you try to just hold a piece of wood in your hand and hand saw it, you know, there's no accurate way to do it because it has a tendency to move around, and clamping it doesn't, you know, it's just too time consuming.
And it'll also damage the wood a lot of times, I've seen, with those clamps clamping down on the wood.
Right, either a clamp or in a vise. So this is a much easier way of using this bench hook. And all it is a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. This one's about 12 by 18 inches long. And on the bottom edge, I glued and screwed a 1x2 cleat. And then on the top edge, I use the same technique, some glue and some 1-inch drywall screws, to put a 1x3 fence with a perfectly straight edge. And what that does, it's called a bench hook because it hooks onto the edge of your bench. And it provides a nice stable surface for cutting.
So you can just push against it anytime.
Right, that's exactly how it works. You just
That's
push against it so everything's held nice and stable. And I'll show you how quickly you get a nice square cut.
Oh, that's perfect. I guess it's important that the plywood's nice and square.
Plywood square, and bring your fence right out to the very edge.
Well, this would be real handy for maybe cutting dowel rods. It's always hard to hold on to, or maybe small shoe molding.
Right, you can use a bench hook like this up to cut lumber up to about 4 or 5 inches. As long as you can grasp it, you can use the bench hook.
With all of our wood decking framed, we're ready to start putting on our composite decking material, and it's only taken a couple hours to get this far along, so it's really moving along quickly. Now, the material the homeowners decided to use on their composite deck is a composite deck made by TimberTech, and it's made up of high-quality wood fibers and polymers, and they're able to engineer these panels with the little support ribs behind it, and tongue and groove style to where it just clips right together, allowing you to completely cover up all of the fasteners that are used to hold it down to the wood frame. Also, periodically it has the little weep holes here that will allow the water to run through the deck and not accumulate on top. Now, later on we'll be putting some plastic right on the ground to prevent any of this from washing away underneath. Now, to keep it fastened down to the wood frame, we're using a screw that you may find being used on boat building. It's a stainless steel screw that's a fairly small diameter shaft, and it has a little square driver on the end. And you can see how well it's working out to screw down right through this part of the wood. And that way, after everything is completely secured down, the next panel clips into place and will completely cover up any kind of fastener that you have. That's also a really nice look on it. Now, this material also has a brushed wood finish on it that really looks more like an interior floor than an actual deck board. And because of the way that it's engineered, the homeowners will have very little maintenance, nothing more than just a little cleaning over the years to keep this looking as good as it does here. Now, the installation of this really went fairly quickly, even though the homeowners wanted this on a 45-degree angle. In some situations, installing material on a 45-degree angle requires more seaming. Here, it means no seams because the composite deck boards are 20 feet long. We simply cut a 45-degree angle on one end, slide it up to the wall and tight to the previous board. Then the composite material is screwed down into every joist. When the corner is reached, we cut a piece with two 45 angles opposing each other. Then the 45-degree angle flips to the other side. This is similar to the way we started the whole layout of this deck, with one small piece cut on two sides and working out of the corners. We continue until the whole space is filled in. With all of our deck material in place, we can now cut all of the excess material off. Now this is always a good idea. Whether you're using a composite decking material or any other wood decking material, allow it to stick out a few inches so that you can chalk a line and then cut a nice, even, straight, consistent, and finished edge along the end of the deck. Now to cut this material is just like cutting wood. On either end, the boards were installed flush with the frame so that we can simply pull a chalk line between the 2 points. Mark sets a circular saw to cut just through the deck boards before he begins the cut. Following the line with a smooth, steady cut, he leaves behind a nice, clean edge. To mask the open profile of the deck boards, we install a 1/2 inch thick by 12 inch wide skirt board made from the same composite material. The skirt board is attached using the same stainless steel screws. Well, the skirt board's a perfect way of kind of finishing off the end of the deck. Now, since they've recessed the screws just a little bit, will allow just enough room for us to take some of the composite sawdust, mix it with a little bit of glue, and then flush out any of the recessed areas like that to kind of make even that disappear. Now, after all of that's complete, we can start concentrating on finishing up our stairs using the same material for both our treads as well as our risers. And we'll be using the same composite materials for our handrail system that'll go along the edge of the deck and down the stairs. And we'll take care of that next.
Now let's join Danny at the Home Center to check out this week's best new product, brought to you by the Home Depot.
Anytime you're painting anything around your home, it's always a good idea to maybe take a small amount of that paint and try it out on a section of wall or trim or maybe the exterior that you'd like to paint. Well, now you can do that with your home computer. With this software that's available now from Glidden, which is a color visualization CD, allows you to install this on your computer, then take a picture of whatever room or exterior wall that you're planning on painting, import that photo, and then use your computer mouse as a virtual paintbrush to see what that area will look like using over 600 colors that are available through Glidden. That way you can see your walls, your ceiling, your trim, anything in your house, exactly what it'll look like once it's completed. Also, to help you along the way, they have some great tips that are included on this on not only selecting paint, but the quantity of paint that you need, the type of paint that you may want to use, and a few great application tips along the way. Then when you're ready to purchase the paint, it has a zip code based locator on the software that'll tell you exactly where you can buy that paint. And if you think about it, if you use a quart of paint here and a quart of paint there to put the little patches on the wall to take a look at, it'll cost more than this software, which is less than $6. It won't be long. These homeowners will be able to spend some time out on their new composite deck. And they'll have a little extra time because they won't have to spend any time maintaining a wood deck. This should look good for a long, long time. Now, because this deck is so high off the ground, we need handrails and some way to get from point A to point B. That's where our steps are coming in. Now, they've already gotten everything framed with the treated wood we mentioned earlier, and they're using the same composite materials for both the treads, the flat area, as well as the risers here on the vertical part of it. So, and basically, they're starting at the bottom and they'll work their way right on up. The process begins by cutting a section of skirt material for the first riser, pre-drilling it and screwing it into place. Then using a table saw, we rip down the deck boards we'll need for the tread. These are then screwed into place. This is repeated for all of the steps. After that, the steps are capped with another piece of skirt board that is held in place, marked, and carefully cut to fit. This composite material is working great on this deck, but how difficult is it to work with?
I like working with this stuff. It's a little bit different than working with wood because of the fact that where you make your cuts and all, because of the profile of this decking material, you have to be more aware of where you make your cuts, and it takes a little longer because you have to use screws to fasten everything together, but other than that, it's better than wood.
Our guys completed all of the stairs yesterday late, and overnight it has gotten a lot colder, so they're anxious to complete this project. All that's left is our handrail system. Now, just like the deck itself, our composite material is being supported by treated wood underneath. In the case of the handrails, we're using a 4x4 treated post that we'll secure later with some lag bolts underneath the deck. Now, to cover this up and to make it maintenance-free, we have these post sleeves. Now these are the exact size we need to slip right down over a 4x4 post like that. Now on top we'll also have a decorative cap that'll cap it off a little bit later. Now the rest of the components to make up the handrail system have several different pieces here. Now this is one that'll be positioned right at the lower part of the post itself. That'll be our bottom rail. It'll be lifted up about 3 inches up off the ground or off the deck. Then our spindles will be positioned about every 6 inches there. Then we'll use the same kind of a piece right on top so that it'll hold our top rail, giving us a very realistic looking handrail system to finish off this deck. Now, it may seem a little complicated, but it goes together fairly easily. We drilled pilot holes at each post location and cut out the deck to make room for the 4x4 post. We then pull a string across the post so that they can be cut off later at the same height. The posts are nailed to hold them secure while the rest of the railing work continues. The post sleeves are then cut and put in place. Top and bottom rail sections are cut to fit snugly between the posts. It's a lot easier in a case like this to assemble the rail sections on the deck and then put them into place. We space the rail sections 3 inches off the deck. After all screws are in place, we then secure the 4x4 post under the deck using lag screws. A straight rail section like this is fairly easy. It gets a little trickier when you start going down each side of the stairs. These are real important, but they do require you to cut the angles on all of the different components that make up the stair rail. Hey, it won't be long before we'll be complete. The guys have just this one rail section to finish, and this deck will be ready for the homeowners to break out the patio furniture and start enjoying the nice view they have here. And we'll show you the completed deck when we come back.
Let's head outside for Around the Yard with Danny and lawn and garden expert Tricia Craven-Worley. Brought to you by TimberTech Composite Decking. Less work, more life.
Tricia, I'll bet your neighbors are always wondering, what is she doing now?
Oh, well, that's the talk I hear. Well, this time I'm increasing the size of this circle under the tree. And one way to do it is this great tip. I've tied this string around the tree trunk and then attached it to this shovel so that I am consistent with the shape of the circle itself.
Well, this would be a trick that the kids would maybe even help you with.
It really would. It's so simple, and they could help guide it around the trunk.
Okay, now, of course, having a bed like this certainly makes it more attractive, but are there other advantages in having a bed under a tree?
There are so many advantages, Danny, but some of them are, of course, a lot of people do have trees in the middle of their lawn, and so they have lawnmowers, and we want to make sure that it doesn't get too close to the tree trunk.
And the string trimmers, I guess this allows you to kind of keep those away from the tree as well.
Right, yeah, because they can really scar the bark, and that is not a good thing at all. And then also you'll see that I have put down some mulch, and the mulch helps to keep some of the moisture in there as well.
Now, is there a general rule as to how wide or how big around a circle like this should be?
That's a very good point. When you start with a sapling or a small tree, you want to make sure that the tree circle is about the size of the drip line.
And you couldn't do that here, could you? It'd be
no,
way out
unfortunately
here.
not. We're not. We've passed that time. So I am simply increasing it to give it a little bit more space, and I think it'll work out a whole lot better.
But now someone has to dig all this grass up.
Yeah. Okay, Danny. Where's that other shovel now?
I'll go get it. Our homeowners here are very pleased with their new composite deck, and they're more comfortable spending time on this deck than the previous deck, not having to worry about it collapsing under them. We had to start off with removing all of the old decking before any work could start on this. Now, if you're considering using composite decking material, you have a lot of choices because there's a number of different styles and finishes as well as colors that you'll need to choose from. Also, remember, you have to use treated framing under a deck like this for support, but once you cap it off with the composite decking and maybe use the composite materials on your handrails, you can spend more time really enjoying yourself on the deck than having to maintain a wood deck. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. I'm Danny Lipford. Come back and see us next week.
Join us next week as we tear out walls to create a whole new space. Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified of new videos.
And be sure to click around and watch some more videos while you're here.